Welcome. I wonder whether you know somebody who you would describe as being prone to mood swings, or perhaps you yourself would fit into that category. One of the things I love about the Psalms is their brutal honesty and reality. There's no covering up of human emotions and frailties. And we've got to Psalm 27, and we're going to take the first of two looks at this psalm, which I find quite fascinating for this very honest reason. It's a psalm that expresses two clear emotions on the part of David. He was a man clearly prone to mood swings. It's a psalm of two halves. Verses 1 to 6 is brimming with spiritual confidence. Verses 7 to 14 is racked with fear. And yet here's the point. These two emotions, almost conflicting emotions, coexist. It's not just that David sometimes is confident and sometimes is lacking in confidence. It's not just that sometimes he's full of faith and sometimes full of fear. It's that he swings between the two almost at the same time in the same situation. It's interesting if you look at some of the context that's described in verses 1 to 6 and then 7 to 14, it's the same. He's surrounded by enemies, he's surrounded by adversaries. And in the first half, he's full of faith and confidence. In the second half, he's trembling with fear. I just want to take you quickly through verse by verse in the first 6 verses and highlight some of the points he makes here. And it's all about confidence. So in verse 1, it's confidence in who God is. Look at how he describes him. He's my light, my salvation, the stronghold of my life. Now the idea of light often in the Bible can mean purity, it can mean understanding. I think here in the context, it's particularly emphasizing that even in times of great darkness, there's a bright light that shines from our God when we're in a relationship with him. So the confidence in who God is. Verse 2, and English translations don't always bring the tense out very well here. It's confidence because of what God has done in the past. Leading to verse 3, confidence to what God will do in the future. See, the tone of verse 2 is really this. God, who has been so wonderfully close to me and helped me in days past, will not fail me in days to come. As he has been faithful to me in the past, as he's been my light and my salvation and my stronghold, so he will be in the future. Friends, there's a lesson there we need to learn, isn't it? Why is it that we fail to apply that simple logic most of the time, if not all the time in our lives? We fail to look back to when God's helped us and strengthened us and delivered us in the past, and then face the future with that same confidence. And that's what David is doing here. And then in verse 4, there's the secret of his confidence. It's this close presence and fellowship with God himself. He has this clear vision of God. It's that intimate relationship with God, often expressed in David's context through the designated place of worship. Not for David, of course, the temple, it hadn't yet been built, but it certainly would have been the tabernacle. But it goes beyond the physical presence. It's an intimate communion with God. And the more he gets to know God, the more confidence he knows in his life. And his great desire in his life is to be in that intimate, living, vital communion and relationship with God. And then in verse 5, he gives us 3 images of how this confidence works out in his life. Lovely pictures. He mixes his metaphors a little bit in verse 5. He says, sometimes God hides his child in a place of shelter until the danger has passed. On other times, it's as if God hides his child so the enemy can't find him. Other times he lifts up on a high rock out of the reach of his enemies and of danger. And God works in all these different ways in our lives. And then in verse 6, here's the response, the natural response of the child for whom God is the light and the salvation and the stronghold. It is to worship, to bring the sacrifice. For us, of course, it's not a sacrifice of blood, it's a sacrifice of praise and thanksgiving based on the sacrifice that Jesus made for us on the cross. So whether today you're more marked by faith or by fear, by confidence or lack of confidence, or perhaps both in the same time, here's reasons to be confident because of who he is, because of who God is, because of what he's done for you in the past and therefore will do for you in the future, because of the different ways in which he expresses that security for you. Let's rejoice. Let's rejoice in our strong God. And so when times of fear and doubt come, we've got something more positive to relate back to. And we'll take another look at Psalm 27 in our next study. And until then, the Lord bless you.